And we're live. Hello, everybody who's not quite there yet. Those of you that are joining us, welcome to our very first Classy Chicks Vintage Flicks. Today we're going to be talking about 1939's movie The Women, starring Norma Shearer, Rosalind Russell, and Joan Crawford, and a bevy of ladies. I believe there were about 130 speaking parts in this movie, and all of them were by the ladies. And with me today we have...
You gotta announce us if you're gonna do that.
Introduce yourselves, guys.
Come on, JL.
You got up there first. Ha ha.
Okay, I'm Heather. I am at How to Be Fancy here on YouTube, and I'm super excited to be talking about this with these lovely girls tonight.
And I'm JL from Modern Retro Gal, and I'm super excited too. This is one of my favorite movies of all time, so I'm excited that we're kicking off our series with this one.
All right. And I am once again trying to figure out how to get to the comments section so that if people are actually watching, I can see them and I can see their comments. And this is hard.
It's a hard thing.
Technology is hard.
I'm Snapchatting us.
Nice. Oh, that's us talking. Okay. Okay.
How did you do it yesterday?
Okay. Yeah, that was yesterday. That was a long time ago. Okay, we have, I see comments now, and we have the lovely Amelia, obviously. And she says that we look very lovely.
Aw, thanks.
Yay.
Thanks, my dear. I went glittery today. Alright, so I'm just moving those off to the sides. And, alright. So, I probably should introduce myself in case nobody knows me. My name is Jennifer. I'm from A Vintage Vanity, and I'm super excited about doing this live chat and broadcast with everybody. And the way we figured we would just kind of do it is we just kind of talk about the movie. If you've seen the movie, feel free in the chat section to add your comments and let us know what your thoughts are about the movie, because we'd love to hear it. And we figured we'll probably go off topic a lot. So bear with us while we do that. But we went through and kind of, after watching the movie, did like top 5 things that we really enjoyed about the movie. And we'll just kind of go down the line, starting with our, I didn't really do them in order of like importance at all. So I guess I will just start with one of the things that I really enjoyed about the movie, or I got a kick out of, was Hedda Hopper being in the movie, playing Polly.
Can you hear that?
Yeah. Daughter does not like my choice.
I apologize. The children are here.
She's not into it.
This is the thing. This is the thing, though. Moms can do it all, right?
This is real life.
That's right.
So there could be a lot of loudness coming from my end.
It's all right.
All right, we like it.
Apparently they're wrestling right now, so
Good, good.
as
Well,
long as there's no blood, I don't really care.
So one of my number 5s was the fact that Hedda Hopper made an appearance, even though she was an actress. She's kind of not too successful of an actress, and became one of the best-known gossip columnists. She wrote a gossip column, Hedda Hopper's Hollywood, for the LA Times, and just to give you an idea of how much she kind of was hated by people back then, Spencer Tracy ran into her in a restaurant and gave her a swift kick in the ass.
really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. another gentleman decided, oh, let me pull out that chair for you. And he pulled out the chair, and as she kept sitting, it was like he kept pulling it and pulling it and pulling it out until she fell to the ground.
Oh my gosh.
And she was very well known for her very opulent hats. And I love a hat-loving woman. But the reason why I love so much that they chose to put her in it, not just because they put her in as a gossip columnist. Her big appearance was towards the end when she came in, and she was the one that brought in all the people to. I don't want to spoil it just yet. Is that weird?
No, but her dress was fabulous in that scene.
Yep.
They basically have her spoil the fact that she's had the cowboy is having the affair with Joan Crawford's character. Because the movie, to me, especially the beginning, it starts on gossip.
Mm-hmm.
You know? It starts with just almost women against women, in a sense, is that feeling that I got.
Mm-hmm.
People were just in it to...
You know what's really interesting that you brought that up is that the Anita Luce, who wrote the screenplay, was actually her family came from a family of tabloid owners. So it's kind of interesting that she was in the movie. I don't know. That's kind of an interesting parallel because Anita came from her family ran a couple of tabloids in Hollywood and in New York, and that's how she got her start in writing.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, right.
Write what you know.
Yes, so.
So that was one of my 5 things that I really liked outside of some of the obvious ones. I guess I should say I really love the film. I've watched it to do this. I rewatched it like 3 times. I just kept it kind of playing in the background, and then did one full watch. Oh, good Lord. Of the movie.
What are you trying to say?
I watched it a bunch of times, only with my mind to the whole movie once the whole time. A little notepad. But I liked it. On reflection, it hasn't changed much to me since I watched it at a younger age. I think I caught a little bit more of the nuances of the films that I might not have caught as a younger person.
I agree.
So,
time around.
Mm-hmm.
So who wants to go next with one of their?
I guess I will. One of the things that I thought was really great, because one of the things that irritates me is that they did remake this film back in, I think, 2008, and I've never seen the remake.
I haven't seen it either.
I kind of refuse to because I believe in the trailers one of the children that is shown is a male child. And so I always get irritated because I'm like, that was not the point of the film. So they went so far as to making it an all-female cast that all of the artwork is all female portraits. All of the animals are female. And there's actually 2 instances in the scene, the fashion show scene. I guess there's a picture of a bull somewhere in it. Oh, it's because it comes up during the picnic scene, so there's a bull, so that would be a male reference. And then I guess one of the magazines has an ad on it that has some kind of a male figure on it. But otherwise, it's a fully female cast. So I thought that kind of attention to detail that they made sure that even the artwork in the movie reflected only female figures and the animals, because that's a lot to keep up with.
That was one of the things that I loved about it too. And I didn't see the magazine. Now I want to watch it and see if
I know. I read that and I was like, oh, I don't have time to watch it again and look for it. But I think also too, like Jen said, now that I'm older, I kind of realize how strained their friendships were. When the first few times that I watched it, the first time I watched it, I was in high school. So now I just kind of saw them as, friends kind of infighting and gossiping. But now I kind of realize, the level of, these were the original like frenemies. This is like where frenemies got its start.
But you know what, though? That actually fully encompasses, I think, friendships, especially on a female level. There's that level of competition. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think more so probably you see it maybe in high school a little bit more. I'd like to think as we mature we get a little bit less catty. But I think it's interesting, though, that at the end of the movie, though, like at the beginning, it was all the women working to pull down Mary's marriage.
Mm-hmm.
At the end, it was almost everybody working together to pull down Joan Crawford's character and bring Mary's marriage back. It was almost like they were working in tandem towards the end. So it was almost like a progression in friendships.
Well, I feel like, too, like at the end, because by the end she had the new friendships with the other Reno divorcees, that sort of gave them a friendship on a different level rather than just high society friends. That, you know, they kind of wanted to see her because she had never really gotten into a relationship or gotten married again, that they kind of wanted to see her, you know, be happy with a man. And since they knew she was in love with her husband, her ex-husband still, then they were all going to get together because nobody likes the mistress.
I'm going to interrupt real quick. We do have a couple of comments, so I just want to do a couple shout-outs really quick. Outside of Amelia, we have Vintage Camper Gal from Wisconsin has joined us, and she was saying thanks for the heads up on the movie. It was the first time she watched it. And one of the things she mentioned is one of the things I actually wrote down in my notes was that how all their characters, their animal characters in the beginning, when they were showing all matches up to their personalities. Like you had Crystal was the leopard, Mary is the deer, Sylvia is the hissing black cat. Which I take exception to. Yeah.
All right, crazy cat lady.
Yeah. The Countess was the monkey, Miriam was the fox, Peggy was the lamb, Mary's mother was the owl, Edith Potter was the cow, and Lucy was the horse. Matches up pretty well. Ashley Claddy, I just slaughtered her last name. Hi.
Hi, Ashley. I think Ashley may have come in over from, I did a little Periscope beforehand, and I think she said she was hopping in from there. So, hey, Ashley, you're still around.
She's commenting that everybody looks very pretty.
Oh, yay.
Yay. See, already we have a bunch of women that are unlike the women. A lot of these. And Haley Mitchell says she's inspired to wear vintage clothing every day. So, yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, we will get to the clothing here, I'm sure. Did I interrupt the thought process on the women being all women?
No, I think not terribly.
I do think I'm glad that you brought that up because I think they made, especially in 1939, I was actually surprised to find that it was a male director. You know, someone with such careful care to make sure it was an all-women cast, all-women everything.
It's interesting with him as well. He did My Fair Lady. He's kind of known in that time period for doing female-led films. So most of his films are known for being like female-driven films, even if they have men in them. So I thought that was kind of cool. Hollywood and MGM spun him a little bit as he was the female wrangler, so he could handle them on set is how they marketed him as a director, which is also how they marketed this film. I thought that was really interesting because they didn't have the romance there. There was no romance there. So they had to come up with a way to market the film that they thought would be interesting. And so they used kind of the cattiness between like Rosalind Russell and Joan Crawford. And so they used that to market the film, whether it was real or not. But I thought that was kind of cool that he is known for directing female-led films.
Because they can handle the women.
I know. I had heard that was like an irritation with other people, and I know about this movie that they didn't use a female director. And I thought, well, were there a lot of female directors in 1939? Like, I don't know that was
a thing.
Very prevalent at that time like it is now.
Yeah, but it was cool. I did like that they used a female screenwriter. So they did have that influence, and she like would sit on set, and they got censored a lot for the film. There were a lot of jokes that were censored, and so she sat there and physically would tell them what to say as they went through the movie, because she didn't have time to rewrite some of the jokes. So she had to sit there and actually tell them new things to say as they went through it. That was really random. But cool that she was able to do that and that they trusted her to do that. I thought that was really unique as a woman.
Yeah.
So they let a lot more fly. Because it was based off a play then, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they let a lot
and it
more
was a play that was also written by a woman.
I'm trying to look up if there are any female directors in the...
Yeah, because somebody was saying, oh, well, you can't really say it's like all female because it was a male director. And I was like, well, it was kind of a big deal because it was still a very sexist time in Hollywood. And so for them to not put any even supporting male characters, that I was like, I can't think of any movies that had a female director at that time.
Yeah, I see a lot more references to women in the 30s, or in the 20s being a lot of female directors, but in the 30s there were less and less, and then the 40s, experimental films had a lot of female directors.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, so on to Hedda.
Yay! I'm gonna do funny. I got some weird things happen. Hold on, let me see. Okay, there we go. Are you here?
I'm like, why does it keep going back to me? I'm not saying anything.
Are you hearing?
Am I what?
Are you hearing?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Okay.
On my end, like an echo. Oh, it's doing it for me too. Just keep going.
Okay. I'm ready. Go. Kind of talk about a funny thing. I thought that the scene in Sydney's salon was hilarious. It was Sylvia and I think Peggy, and they're doing a workout, and they're in like kind of fancy workout outfit.
I'm sorry. Can you start from the beginning of that statement? Because you're cutting in and out. So I've put you as present, so it should stay on you.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I was going to talk about the workout scene in Sydney's. I think it's hilarious that they're wearing little like workout outfits. They're wearing belt buckles. And I also love Sylvia worked out, and she particularly in this the ball and Lucille Ball.
Oh, that's a little different than RuPaul.
RuPaul. She did have drag. But I thought I'd never really comparison before. And I know later they were play names. And so it was kind of also I was scared about the fact that I totally work out just like so.
It reminded me of a Pilates workout.
Yeah, definitely. Pilates or something.
I know. I decided to go to the gym.
What's that?
I said I decided that I needed one of those workout outfits for the next time I go to the gym.
Oh yeah. Some sort of stuff.
I'm gonna do that exact workout too.
Sorry, things are bouncing on me again.
Oh no.
Oh no. I was trying to make them. All right, so real quick, just a couple more updates. Simming shenanigans. I just like that shenanigans is part of her name. As asked if we have ever seen the 2008 remake with Meg Ryan, Annette Bening, Eva Mendes, Deborah Messing, and Jada Pinkett Smith. I have not. And quite frankly, I don't know that I really have a desire. It's actually been remade 3 times. It was remade in, I have it in my notes here, in 1956 as a musical called The Opposite Sex, in 1977 for German TV called Women in New York, and then 2008 as the remake. I have not seen any of those. Have you guys?
No.
JL's already said she has no desire to.
I don't know how remake. Classic for a reason.
That's kind of my feeling.
Vintage Camper Gal has said she says she's sorry she's underdressed, but she does have on her 1940s chenille bathrobe on and a mud mask. I think we would all prefer to be dressed like that right now. And she said with a strong cast of females that I'm sure that they had a lot of input as well into what was going on. And we do have a little bit of an echo, but hopefully that will rectify itself.
Yeah, I feel like I'm not sure why it's happening. Because I can hear it from me, but not you.
You can't hear me, okay?
Yeah. You don't echo, but and when Heather talks, she echoes.
Not sure. I don't know. It could be the connections.
Okay.
I don't know. All right, and then JL, do you want to start us off with number 2?
Okay. Let's see.
Did I shock you?
Yes. Okay, so a couple of things that aren't really in the film, but I learned about, which I thought was really cool, is number one, Steven actually had a son. His name is Little Stevie. He's younger than Little Maybe, but he's never in the movie at all. I don't even believe a reference to it, but they did have a son.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because I know Peggy Day they have a kid at the end who's a boy, and they reference him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Interesting.
Yeah. A lot of my stuff deeper. Ready to dive into
Oh, we will dive anytime you are ready.
Then I'll start bringing out the big guns.
Well, you want? Okay, I'll bring out one of my deeps to match your deep.
Okay.
And this is really not one of my numbers, so I'm kind of cheating. But one of my deeps was like, did you notice? I mean, even from the get-go, there's the reference like women as animals, right? They jungle red. How many times do they reference that nail polish? Which, by the way, one of my favorite lines in the movies is I've had 2 years to grow claws, and they're jungle red, mother. One of my favorite lines. But not only that, but there are animals throughout the film, not just in the form of dogs. You see the dogs fighting, right, at the beginning. Mm-hmm. You also have the monkeys during the fashion show, which, by the way, I felt bad for those monkeys, because did you notice in that scene, like, the women would come out and they would just be throwing food at the monkeys, and they're like, we don't want your food. Why? Like, they wouldn't, like, they didn't want the food.
To the side. They're like
those poor monkeys just getting pelted. Just getting pelted with food as they go.
Eat it.
And then, take it. You will take my food. Then, as well as Joan Crawford's famous line towards the end of the movie, there's a name for ladies. There's a name for you ladies, but it isn't used in high society outside of the kennels. And which made me wonder, because I thought they did a good job of not making men come out as like, it's not like a man-hater movie. You know what I mean? It's definitely about how women deal with the relationships, which I wonder about the women portrayal. Like, why was it so, like, women are animals, women are beasts, or is it just, like, that instinct to, like, protect what's yours and to keep what's yours, survival of the fittest? I'm not really sure where they were going to with the whole, like, reference, but I kind of felt it was too often to not have been intentional.
I felt it. I think also in there because your volume is high.
My volume's up really high?
I'm not sure. But I think we're coming through your speakers in a delay.
Oh.
Technical.
Okay, shoot.
Do you have headphones?
I do.
Is that
what turned you down? Why don't you guys talk?
Okay.
And I'm gonna go get my headphones. And I'm gonna turn off my volume while I'm getting them.
Oh. I guess I can go through because I also had
echoing, so that must have been it.
Yeah. See, we can hear each other. We just had to get rid of her, didn't we?
I know. It's all Jennifer's fault. We're taking over.
Oh no. I was gonna say though about the Jungle Red thing. I had totally picked up on the same thing, and I took it from a little bit different perspective, in not necessarily coming from like technically what they were thinking, but how the women used like the nail polish colors and going to the salon and things like that as almost like a tool of they were stating their independence, because throughout it all, it talks about them compromising for a man. It talks about all kinds of things that are not particularly for the patriarchal society versus, like, you know, more the man-hating, man-bashing. But so I thought that, like, the nail polish, the things like that were sort of in reference to more of a statement of independence, which I thought was kind of cool. The name of the nail polish being Jungle Red. I loved all of that. I was just saying that I totally picked up on what you were saying.
Mary, like when she has a discussion with her mom about whether she should stay in the marriage, she was definitely like, you know, it's not like when you got married. You can get divorced now. You don't have to stay in an unhappy marriage when your spouse isn't being faithful, which I think still even at that time would be fairly scandalous that people were divorcing. Yeah,
I looked it up. And it was like, I think it's 19% of the married U.S. population were divorced in the year 1939. So it was still a lower number, and it had actually gone down or it was actually rising, because after the Depression, people had stayed together, and then after unemployment rates were dropping and women were able to get jobs, that number, the divorce rate started going up towards the 40s. So it's kind of like, it was a theme, I think, that was in underground circles. But I guess that was interesting, the like generational changes.
Real quick, Amelia said it worked. It's fixed. Good thinking, Heather.
Yay!
Yay! Heather's our technical advisor.
I know, she's been the problem solver for everything. Simmings Shenanigans said she saw the remake once and she said it didn't compare to the original, so I don't think, based on her recommendation, we will actually watch it. So thank you for saving us 2 hours. Carla says, yes, it's fixed.
On the remake from 2008 said that it was just horrible and it was a colossal flop. Even when it came out, it was pretty much just a horrible flop movie. And so that's why I was never, and it was my favorite movie, and I was like, they have ruined it.
No.
And Camper Gal says, come on, men are men, but ladies are bitches. A little male perspective here, maybe 1939.
It could be. It could be. And it may be the male perspective of how women are, but it also could be, in all reality, the sort of more high society that these women represented. That was probably very prevalent back then, even between friends, was to go to the salon, to go to the spa, to go to the gym, and just be gossiping about who was doing what and wearing what and who was seen with who. So it, and it still happens now. So
Yeah,
I
I was
think
gonna say, I think that's definitely.
unfortunately, that's what women do. We're talkers.
Well, and I think even like then, I think the society thing kind of probably did play a little bit of a role. My grandmother, she lived on a farm, but when she would go into the city, she made all of her clothes patterned after designers, and she would cut tags out of designer labels and sew them in.
Brilliant.
Leave them label side up on her chair so everyone would see it. So even in small town rural America, like you see that class distinction. So I think that definitely plays a role, especially then when that's what you had, was what class you are.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Carla says this is one of her favorite movies of all time. Delta Burke is an ex-sister-in-law, and she introduced me to this movie and Gaslight.
Right. Ooh.
Delta Burke, I'm assuming designing women, Delta Burke, right? Is that? I hope. If it is, that's fabulous. I absolutely love that woman. And Sarah Johnson said the remake was somehow sanitized, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Because
it's
considering like
a lot of the innuendo and reference that was in this film, I'm thinking that maybe that was all probably stripped away.
Maybe.
All right. That was so the whole Jungle Red, Jungle Fever was. I will technically make it my second and drop something else. Dang it. So I'm going to drop my Denny Moore as Olga. I absolutely loved her, the little nail technician in the beginning. So I'm just going to throw that out there super quick, but I won't discuss it because that's technically.
I feel like we could have like a whole discussion on the secondary characters in this movie because there were so many, and I was like, I just need to I can't talk about all of them, but I love them. And like even Marjorie Main, I was like, I forgot that she was in this film, and so I loved her. Like she was my favorite as a kid, so I was just super excited to like see her, and in that role even. She had a great quote too. What did she say? Because she played Lucy, right? And she said, "We got married, and I haven't had a chance to think about love since." And I thought that was true to her character, really sad, but also really funny.
I love how much she was talked about him being a redheaded in the whole he's this crazy redheaded lover kind of a thing, and his temper and his passion, and it was always a redheaded, and it was whoa. She's down with the
says the redhead, by the way.
Right?
Which I do feel like they kind of, with her character, who I loved her from all the Mom and Pa Kettle movies, absolutely amazing. And she's one of those women you see in a lot, but you don't remember what you see her in. But that he was abusing her, and she was sticking it in to that marriage. So I must wonder, going back to the whole society things, if that has to do with class. She couldn't really have that luxury of divorce because you need that income, perhaps.
Maybe.
Where these women are coming into Reno, left and right, because they can afford the divorces, they can afford to leave their husbands, which is something people still struggle with today.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
And I just brought the whole conversation down.
Well, and generationally, she was a tad bit older than those women, and because of where she lived and, like you said, their class, that women at that time, they did just kind of stick out those marriages. But I thought that it was interesting because as much as she talked about that he did abuse her and he had a temper, it really seemed like she did love him, though. She had, this sort of genuine, I don't know, affection for him, and she was kind of into the rough stuff. because, you know, she's like, oh, you know, every time she talked about him being a redhead, you could kind of see her get, like, revved up.
Yeah.
So I think maybe as much as he was sort of like, she alluded to the abuse, I think it almost seemed like she was sort of like into the rough stuff, which is kind of like interesting because it, you know, women being a sexual being wasn't really, I don't know, acceptable to sort of put it out there.
Yeah.
You know, that stuff was reserved and that was for, you know, behind bedroom doors, but she was sort of like, no, I'm into it.
Maybe she was a little into the little spanky in the bedroom.
Exactly. That was sort of the impression from her that I've always gotten, that she was sort of, you know, all these women were like reserved and buttoned up, and she was like, hey, my man, you know.
Real quick, Carla agrees with Sarah that the remake wasn't true to the feeling of the original. And Campergal says that she loved how clear the descriptions of the men were so that you could truly picture the way they looked.
Yeah, I agree. I did, though, and I forgot about this, but when I was rewatching it, how, like, angry I would get sometimes because you couldn't see Steven, and I just wanted to, like, see him to see if, like, he was deserving of Mary's love, and so I forgot how irritating that was.
I was like, he better be really handsome, because if he's some, like, I don't know, balding, like...
Exactly. Like, I needed to prove that he was worthy.
looking person who's, like, sweaty all the time, I was going to be like, girl, you need to run.
Well, the cook did say, remember towards the beginning where they were coming in from their day on the horses, and the cook was like, oh, if we keep cooking like that, he's going to lose his Adonis figure. So...
And they refer to him as being fair-haired and fair, so yeah.
So I always pictured, not Paul Newman, but...
I like the idea of Paul Newman, though.
Robert Redford, that's who it was. I always picture, it comes through my head. All right, Heather, your number 2?
Oh, gosh, okay. Well, you kind of said one of mine, which was the Jungle Red theme, but then that went into kind of, we'll skip that. That's kind of an ending thing. Should we talk about, oh, you know what I did love? I loved Miriam. I never loved her before, again, until I rewatched it.
Oh, yeah.
But she was my favorite character.
Yeah, like, I think she totally brings something into the conversation about, women on the other side of the story, but who are different than Joan Crawford or, you know, those types. Like, she was literally just trying to be an independent woman, and but she also had the side of her that was so kind and so on the team of everyone, and I thought that was really unique, because like, it was almost, even though they were all at odds kind of against each other at one point when they were in Reno, they were fighting, she still would say things that would remind them all that, hey, we're all still women. And there was something about her that I just really, really liked this time around.
Oh, I completely agree.
Always been my favorite character, and her wardrobe has always, throughout the entire movie, has always been my favorite wardrobe.
Yeah, I agree.
Out of all of the characters, like, from beginning to end, I have not hated anything that she wore. And she makes me want dresses that have, like, hoods and stuff on them. I'm, like, determined that's going to take over my wardrobe.
I loved it. I loved her.
Even, like, her formal gowns, they all had, like,
had the hood. I know.
And they were all dazzled, and I was like, ugh.
So much sparkly.
No, but I'm all about the hoodies.
I do think it's a good point. Like, they do play it, because not every woman who's in a relationship with a married man, while not ideal, should be demonized. You know what I mean?
Right.
But you can definitely, because one of my points on here is when Edith and Sylvia go to check out the competition at the perfume store, and you get, like, that just whole entire scene in the department store, all the way through Joan Crawford, I know I need to refer to her as Crystal, on the phone manipulating Steven into coming over like, oh, it's my birthday, it's okay, you know, all that kind of thing. Oh, I didn't tell you. And just the way, I don't know, she changes from being on the phone with him. Like, you just get a real glimpse of who she is as a character. And then Miriam is almost the exact opposite. I found myself rooting for her and being like, yeah, that Fowler needs to get away from Sylvia because she's batshit crazy.
Right.
You know,
I think it really shows, like, the individuality of the women even more so than just trying to put everybody into their own little cliques. Like, you really get to see an individual, not just, you know, a group of women who are adulteresses.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the things too that I sort of like, I rooted for Miriam to get Mr. Fowler away from Sylvia was because there were certain things I picked up on this movie, like Sylvia talks, someone talks about, I don't remember if it was Sylvia or somebody else, some fight that she tries to pick with him, and that he recorded the whole thing, and it was like this she was like crazy and nasty, they sort of allude to it, and that was sort of how he was able to win the divorce. So it was sort of like, because she comes to the ranch and she's like, he has the nerve to divorce me. So it kind of also gave me like new insight to like Sylvia. Not only is she gossipy, but that she was like cuckoo crazy.
Oh yeah.
And he was probably like the most miserable person ever. And, you know, the sort of two sides of Miriam where, you know, she kind of gets in this fight, but then she's also trying to build people up. She probably felt bad for the guy and was like, you know, she had genuine love for this guy and is like, I want to help you get out of this horrible marriage. Maybe just as much as she loved him and wanted to be with him, she just saw like this poor guy and with this awful woman. And because the other thing that I caught was that Sylvia and Mary are cousins. Not only friends, but they're cousins. So I was like, no, is she like stabbing her friend in the back through the whole movie? But she's like stabbing family in the back through the whole movie. So it was like this whole other like level to their relationship. Yeah. That I kind of understood why Mary was sort of like blasé about later on, like cutting Sylvia out of her life, because like we all got that one family member where you're sort of like, I'm not really gonna deal with you anymore, even if you are family. You're kind of going over here.
It's definitely that she had a case of that. I'm probably gonna say it wrong, but that Schadenfreude, where you take pleasure in other people's misery. Because even at the beginning, where, you know, Mary is in the paper and she's like, oh, of course it's her best side. You know, she's only happy when Mary is unhappy. But I think she feels that way about anybody in the movie.
I feel like also with Sylvia, this is me reading into a film, there's a lot of insecurity with her, even in the way she dresses, in the way she speaks, in the way she gossips. I think that there's just this underlying deep insecurity in her, so she's always trying to get to the top. And so even though it's incredibly hard for me to be sympathetic to her, I still kind of recognize that little bit of insecurity that I think oftentimes is what pits us against each other as women, is just that underlying, maybe we're not good enough, maybe we don't measure up, she's better than me, that whole thing. So even though I don't want to be sympathetic, I think I kind of have to a little bit.
No, I do think you have to be a little sympathetic to Sylvia, because you can see vulnerable moments here and there with her character, and that's why I think, because who played her?
Rosalind Russell.
Rosalind. I think she played her so incredibly well, because you see, even at the end where Mary's talking about the psychoanalyst that she has a thing for, you can see her insecurity in that moment. When she was like, oh, you know, did he say any, you know, that kind of thing. So I do feel like it does, because she can't be a complete demonized character. You can't hate her completely, because then I think it unbalances the film. Because I think Mary at times wasn't, you know, she was a gossiper herself at times. She wasn't perfect.
Because even in Reno, like, Sylvia has that meltdown, and at first when I watched it, I kind of thought, oh, she's just throwing a tantrum. But then when I watched it this time, I was like, you know what? She's like really having like a meltdown. And it's obviously like there's something really broken inside of her that she was just like freaking out and like breaking things because all of a sudden she felt like everyone's against her. Like, you know, her whole world like just came crashing down because not only was she in Reno to get a divorce, but she was there with the woman who was basically like causing her divorce. You know, it's her husband's other woman.
Right.
That he's divorcing her for. So that her whole like universe sort of just like collapsed. So I saw it for the first time. I was like, you know, that really wasn't just like a bratty tantrum that she was throwing because, you know, whatever. Like it was really like her whole world was sort of just had exploded in like 1 second of her life. So as much as you kind of look at her and you're like, well, a lot of things you could have avoided if you hadn't done this and you hadn't done that. But at the same time, it's like she just thought that she was going to be Mrs. Fowler forever. And she sort of took pride in that she was Mrs. Fowler and that was her life. And now that wasn't going to be her life anymore. And who was she going to be?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think at some point she even stated that she didn't love him. I can't remember at what point. Before we go farther, just a couple more comments coming through. Carla says, it's the classic get married in Vegas and then divorced in Reno, as very few who got divorced did, right? She also says it was empowering to see how they rallied together in Reno. Camper Gal says they had kind of a Vivian and Lucy relationship. I believe she's referring to Mary and Sylvia. Yeah. Also, she says that Sylvia isn't happy, so she doesn't want anyone else to be. Sarah responds with, yes, we've all had one of those in our lives, and even though she's quite awful, ultimately you feel sad for her.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I had to say that I loved her glasses and the fact that she was knitting almost the entire movie because, well, we know how I love glasses. My job is knitting. It was awfully shocking how much I related to Sylvia, so...
Oh, no.
Just throwing that out there. But no, I definitely wanted her glasses.
And it was nice to actually see a woman in glasses in the movies, because you don't see that very often.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite things was that she wore glasses, and she didn't just wear them like when they were in the behind the scenes kind of thing. She wore them to the fashion show, she wore them to the nightclub, so she always had them, and I loved that.
And there was no reference to men don't make passes to women in glasses.
Right.
That's so not true. Heather, do you want to take us into another point of yours? Because I think
let's see. I think I just did Miriam. Does JL have another one?
One
left.
You got one left?
I guess one of the things that I noticed this time around that sort of took me aback and I didn't really get it was, I'm not really sure if they kind of talked about how old little Mary was, or, you know, in the movie. Like, I was sort of trying to figure out.
She had to have been like 9, because they had been married 10 years.
Right. So when Mary tries to finally explain to her that she and Stephen are getting a divorce, and she sort of starts to kind of bring up the subject, I thought it was sort of strange how little Mary was sort of, she kind of asked her, like, do you know what divorce is? And she was like, no, what's that? And it almost seemed, I thought it odd the way it was like she did not get the conversation at all. Not because it was a hard conversation, but it was almost like she didn't get it. Like, because at first she's like, no, I have no idea what divorce is, and she's just kind of like off in the rafters, and then all of a sudden she's like, oh, well, yeah, I have lots of friends who are divorced. So I kind of, like, her character, I felt like she kind of did that. She went in and out of sort of like, it made it difficult to kind of figure out exactly how old she was supposed to be. Like, I didn't know if maybe they had a child actor who was a little bit older maybe than her character was really supposed to be playing her, because it was sort of like she would get stuff and then she wouldn't get stuff. because the actress herself seemed older than someone who was like 8, 9, 10. You know, like she looked older than that to me. So I kind of thought sometimes her character sort of drove me crazy because I was just like...
A little bit. I do have to say, like, okay, number one, I love the term darling, right? I think we need to refer to each other as darling much more often than we do. But what was kind of weird, talking about the daughter, Mary, is when she had, like, oh, I have to go wash my hands before we go. And then she's crying, and she's like, Daddy, darling. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, see, that's what I mean.
Daddy, darling.
Like,
is that
in the conversation, she's like, I don't know what divorce is. I don't know what you're talking about. And at the end, she's like, Daddy, darling, stop. And I'm like,
Mommy, dear.
All over the place. I don't know what's going on with you.
I think, though, I feel like with her character, they kind of took her from a place of being a little kid to the end when she's in the bathroom scene with Joan/Crystal. I feel like she kind of comes into, she just seems so much older in the end, I think, than she did in the beginning. Because I feel like she understands, and which is probably natural for a kid who, you know, goes to, I guess it was a 2-year span. So she goes
then
to
she
the
understands, like, the phone calls that Crystal is making.
Right.
Like, that she's not just talking to her friends, that she's talking to a man.
Right.
But she went from, like, I don't understand what divorce is to I know what kind of phone calls you're having.
Yeah.
I think Mary kind of even went through that transition, too, like, of being very naive
to what was going on in the beginning.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what Vintage Camper Girl has just said. She said little Mary did a lot of growing up in the movie from the start to her understanding and view at the end. Yeah. Carla thanks us for introducing her to the term Schadenfreude. She's like, I didn't know there was a name for that. All right. I have two. Somehow I have two left.
Go for it.
And before I get into the deeper one, can we just talk about the fact that the fashion show was amazing? It was a 10-minute long fashion show in the middle of a film. Which I think is not only significant for us because we love fashion so much, but I think it is significant in capturing the fashion culture of that time period and what it is that they were looking for. Because I know at one point modern movies had taken that actually out of the film, and it was, I don't know if it was Turner Classic Movies, but I believe it was, you might want to Google me on that, is actually the one who had it placed back into the movie. I don't know why it's in Technicolor. I am glad it is, and I will tell you this, the first time I ever rewatched the movie, because I remembered the fashion show, but not a lot about it, but it's rewatching it, and I fell asleep. Not the movie's fault. Mine. And I was rewatching it, and I fell asleep, and then the morning I woke up, I was like, was that in Technicolor, or did I dream that in Technicolor?
I always loved that they did put it in color because I feel like it made the outfits pop so much more. TCM did put it back in because the director hated it, and he wanted it taken out. He thought that it made the movie too long and it interrupted the flow of the movie. So he was not happy when they put it back in because he wanted it out for good. I personally love that it's there.
I love it to bits. And of course, I'll leave the one thing up. But I was obsessed with, and a part of me thinking of like maybe they did it Technicolor was like this is like the dream of what we're supposed to symbolize as women. And then, because you see when the model walks into frame with our characters, they go back to black and white. So it's almost like the dream versus reality in some senses. But I was obsessed with the sage green and like off-white outfit from like the monkey scene. I absolutely think that sage green needs to be a fall color. And the picnic scene with the stripes in the dresses, like the red and white one. Yeah. It actually reminds me, Dior just did a couture collection using stripes. And it made me think, I wonder maybe if he grabbed some influence from this because it's amazing. But I also thought there was a lot of like Eastern vibes with some of the clothing. And I love that, like JL mentioned, it being in color, because that freaking green, that like lime green.
That, yes.
If I was trying to like pick colors for a 3940s outfit, I would have never picked that color. You know, I always thought it was a little more subdued. So it was really great to see how the use of color was being used at that time. I love the use of terry cloth and beach covers.
Mm-hmm.
I need to make one of those because it's absorbent and gets you all dry.
Yeah.
Can you
And
the shoulder pads?
yeah, I think I actually have some pictures. And of course, we have to talk about. Hold on.
Yay.
Oh, hold on. I think I gotta open it first. Hold on. I had it all like prepared and in a folder and everything, and I'm just dropping.
Uh-oh.
Here we
We
go.
lost Heather.
Oh no. Well, hopefully she will dial in
Did
shortly.
you hang up on her?
I did
There
not.
she
There
is. There you
I went
are.
away.
Don't go. Don't ever leave us.
I got kicked out.
Okay. So here is our wacky bathing suits,
That
which
one
doesn't
was
show.
actually one of my favorites.
But what I didn't realize at first is that the hand is actually holding the rose in this one, because as you guys probably are aware, in the okay, note to self: always make sure these are open before doing this. Is that the outside of it was the creepy, hand.
I know, it's creepy, but I love it.
It reminded me, there's a designer now, I think her name is Vivetta, and she does a lot of this style of clothing with the hands and like the very like unique collars. And there's one where she has, it's like hands as the collar and they're clasping in front. And when I saw the cape, that's exactly what it reminded me of. So I was like, oh.
I think I also put up a picture of, here, I'm just going to open these all up and then show them, because I think it needs to happen. This is what I was thinking of when I was thinking of that Eastern influence.
Mm-hmm.
Am I just presenting Heather to everybody?
No. It's the
okay, good. It's the use of gold and white. It was almost very, a little bit like, I don't know, maybe Moroccan in inspiration, but also the I'll just do one more because I don't want to turn this into the let me show you things phase. But I absolutely love this red and white number. Essentially because one of my prom dresses, I was obsessed with Scarlett O'Hara, and I did the big red and white gown. But I almost love this because it almost looks like a corset. It almost looks a little more modern, like if you take off the little bow at the neckline and stuff like that. So I thought a lot of it was a little bit almost fashion forward in a sense. And then we have some more comments because, let's see. Amelia said the term darling just reminds her of Grey Gardens now.
Little Edie.
And she calls her mom Mother Darling because of that word, and she loves it. Sarah said she thinks that Little Mary symbolizes a loss of innocence. She also is like, on the fashion show, how glorious. I don't know that she talks that way, but... Camper Gal says, hair and fashion, please. The fashion show commentator made some type of reference to color, I believe. And we got some in talking to a response that I did not see. And then she says, wait, sage green isn't a fall color? Well, it is, but it's not like one of the colors that's being used right now. You know how it always comes out, like everything's in like tans and burgundies and stuff like that. Vincent Price is creepy in a good way. Love Vincent Price. We can't see it. Haha, yes, I love it. The hand thing looks like the Addams Family. Yes. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so that's what we have with comments. And then everybody has one left, and then because I know we're a little over an hour right now, so.
I think you touched on mine, which was the fashion show. So I think that was kind of my last little moment. I do know, though, with the fashion show, they filmed that twice. Once in black and white, which is what the original director filmed, and then he wanted it out, but then they refilmed it in the studio at MGM without the girls interacting with the models in Technicolor. And I think one of the reasons they did that is because they had some technology that they didn't use in The Wizard of Oz, but they wanted to use it in a film, and so that was part of the reason why they went ahead and did it in Technicolor, was just to use the technology.
Which is interesting that you mentioned that, because the fashion, the designer, Adrian Greenberg, he went by a couple different names. He also designed for The Wizard of Oz.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he did, like, what was it, like over 200 dresses for the women in this movie, which is insane. Like, he did all the fashion shows, plus all of the gowns that the women wore. I thought that was insane.
Amazing. Was there anything else you wanted to say about the fashion show? Because I feel like we could do a whole broadcast about the fashion show. Yeah,
definitely. I think we covered that. The other things that I had fashion-wise were more at the end when they're all in the nightclub at the very final little series of scenes there. First off, I couldn't find a picture of this, but it's after Mary's had her big moment and she's realized that she's grown claws in the past 2 years. But this is so superficial. The robe that she's wearing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
The big, white, fluffy, furry robe. I need it. I couldn't, focus on what she was saying because I just needed it in my life. But I couldn't find a picture of it, so sorry.
I was screen grabbing some stuff. I'm going to see if I can't get a screen grab. That'll take too much time. But yes, go back and look at it, because that thing was magnificent.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then.
Oh, wait.
All right. Jael, you have one more, right?
Yeah, I guess what I came up with, since we sort of talked about a lot of things, was I had a holy crap moment during the movie because of one of the lines.
Yes, I know which one you're talking about.
Towards the end.
Oh, towards the end.
Yes, it was at the end. And I don't know why I never noticed this line before. And then when I was doing some research on the film, I thought, wow, that was just, it made it even more sort of I can't believe that's in there. But it's before Mary decides to go to the nightclub at the end, and she's, gotten dressed. It's after the dinner party, and her mom comes in, and she's sort of trying to convince her, she kind of alludes to she had been seeing someone, and she needs to just marry him and stuff, and she's like, well, I kind of like having the bed to myself. And her mom goes, yes, well, it is nice that you can spread out like a swastika.
Oh, I didn't even catch that.
I was I almost fell out of my chair. I was like, what?
Really?
Wow.
I didn't notice that either.
The film, it came out September 1st, 1939, which is, I don't know, kind of cool that we did this in September.
Oh.
That was also the date that Germany invaded Poland.
Interesting.
How random.
Totally random. But yeah, I was because this is sort of before, right before all that starts going down. But I was when Heather was talking about it being censored, some of the jokes being censored out, I was like, wow, they let that in the movie, and then just a couple years later, war
Wow.
breaks out.
Yeah, because it's definitely there are, when watching classic films, it's a definite difference in culture where we are today versus then. Because I know that in the department store, when Crystal is sweet talking Steven about how she's going to cook dinner, and that one girl comes in and she's like, she says a line basically saying that they can't see the person actually cooking the film because she's so dark.
I noticed that too, yeah.
And I was just like, oh, wow,
Yeah.
that's not cool. But at the same time, I think it's important to capture how history was. We can't sanitize it to a great extent. I think things need to stay on their own. And I mean, I'm glad. I'm like, that's not cool, man. That's not cool. Well, Crystal's character is like most of what I have to say is like, that's not cool, Crystal.
Yeah.
The last thing I had on my list was essentially Mary and Sylvia at the end. I thought it was an amazing piece of acting from both Norma and Joan. I mean, with Joan Crawford, you kind of expect it, right? But I really felt like they just pulled out all this, or not Joan Crawford, but good Lord. Rosalind and Norma. I kind of touched on earlier as far as getting that a little bit of sympathy for Sylvia, but just all that whole end portion with the whole Hedda Hopper thing, everybody coming together, they're shoving Sylvia in the closet, they're bringing down the cowboy, and it's just like women working together at their finest moment. And even the Countess coming in and having her little dramatic meltdown. What did she? L'amour.
Oh. My favorite is when she says, "Get me a bromide and put some gin in it."
Yeah. So I felt like it takes, at the end, it felt like that moment of like, it takes a village for a woman to get her man back. So I really liked that progression in the movie. I mean, I could say a lot to the, like, what I actually think of the whole, like, people who cheat on people and what marriage is, what you do during that time period. But quite honestly, I don't think things have changed. From when this movie was made to today, I think a lot of the attitudes stay the same. You know, a lot of people stay in just because it's easier. A lot of people stay in because they can. A lot of people leave before they should.
They stayed because of the children, because that was one thing that Mary's mom talked about a lot. She's like, it's not just you have children. So, you know, people still stay because they have kids, because they don't want to put their kids through divorce.
I did think it was kind of interesting. I think this was the second time she's with her mom, and she's talking about the divorce, and her mom's basically telling her that, you know, you still love him, and she's like, you should go back, and she goes, a lot of great things can be built on something that's bad. Like, I wish I had written down that line, because she basically says, just because something is bad and to you seems inexcusable, a lot of good things can come out of that. And I thought that was kind of a unique perspective to take, and maybe one that she had to make 30 years earlier, whenever it was that she was with Mary's father and things were different, but it was still, you know, she didn't regret the time she had spent after that. By
the first talk of divorce, she was like, you know, your father and I went through this, and I stayed. And it sort of shattered Mary's perception of her father, because she had no idea that her parents went through that. But yeah, like, it's sort of that, do you forgive and move forward, or do you leave? And so that's still something that, you know, couples deal with now when it comes to infidelities. Like, do they just say, oh, once a cheater, always a cheater, and you humiliated me, and that's it? Or do you put in the hard work if both people want it still and then move forward. Because I think ultimately, as much as there's like the cat fighting and the fashion and the trip to Reno, ultimately I feel like as much as the movie is about their relationship, it's really about Mary's relationship with Steven and sort of this whole journey for her.
Yeah.
As far as could she forgive him and take him back and move forward, and at the end she's finally able to make that decision.
Yeah, that's kind of what I picked up too.
Sorry about that.
You all right?
Real quick comments. Camper Gal said she didn't catch it about the whole swastika thing. Amelia says, wow, interesting writing choice. Sarah says, the swastika was an auspicious symbol pre-Nazi. So it may have been
logged onto it.
Because it was, I believe it was something good.
Well, even in my neighborhood, you can see architecture that has a swastika on it from pre-1940. So it's kind of interesting. Like a lot of houses would cover that up, but I've seen a few in my neighborhood, which is kind of historic, where that you can still see it, and a lot of people don't buy those homes.
Camper Gal says that she loved the dramatic ending and the happy ending. But I do think, going back to kind of what JL said, I do think that a lot of it has to do with pride. Pride was referenced numerous occasions throughout the movie, and there's the whole, pride goeth before the fall. And sometimes you do have to set your pride aside and say, you know what, it's okay, I forgive you, it hurt, but, so I think as long as you put your pride aside, you can make a good decision. Sarah said,
any relationship, not just marriages, even friendships.
Yep, I definitely agree with that.
Sarah's off to sew her wedding dress in South Australia.
Oh, yay.
Happy wedding.
Yay. All right, and with that, are there any final thoughts anybody wanted to have before?
No, I have, like I said, I have like 4 pages of notes, so I have a lot of final thoughts, though. But I think we sort of, hit a lot of, like, the big talking points, so.
Absolutely. Well, I absolutely love the movie. Next month, we are going to be pushing, the talk is now going to be at 9 Central, 7 Pacific, to make it a little bit easier for anybody who's on the West Coast to be able to join in. I know, unfortunately, it doesn't help with anybody who's on European time because, bless you if you got up to watch us. But going forward, the chats will be the second Wednesday of every month. Because today's Wednesday, right? Yeah. Second Wednesday of every month. And for October, we are doing Creature from the Black Lagoon. In celebration of that spooky, spooky, spooky time. Little Colleen Marie Evans has just joined us.
No.
Colleen.
You're a little late, girl.
You're a little late.
Thanks for
coming anyway.
It's just early for October, guys.
Yeah, exactly. She was like, I heard they were talking about Halloween. This was a lot of fun. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. Please continue in the comment section below to let us know what you guys thought of the movie. We'll be checking the comments and chatting with you guys there. Again, I will be placing links for JL and Heather's channel down there, so if you do not follow them already, please do so. And if you don't follow me, why? Why would you not follow me? All right. Any final thoughts? Girls, do you want to say your goodbyes?
Watching, everyone. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad we were able to get a good crew together for this.
Yeah.
And I didn't push any, buttons this time, guys.
Yay, no crazy button pushing. I know, Jennifer's now I'm going to press a button.
I did. I pushed some buttons. But it seemed not to, no mustaches on anybody, so I think we're good. And I will always make sure to have my little headset in because I can't hear worth diddly. So hopefully we won't have any echo problems going forward. It actually kind of makes me sad we're not going to be doing this for another month.
I know.
I don't know. Well, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see down the line. Maybe I don't know. Maybe we'll do. I don't know.
We'll do impromptu.
We could do impromptu like beauty talks or something.
Yeah.
Because our face shaving went so well.
I went back and started watching some of it, and I was laughing so hard.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm surprised how structured we were.
Oh, I was gonna say we need to like pat ourselves on the back for like staying on topic,
Yeah.
like movie, and not like going who knows where with it.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we will see you guys all next month, and stay tuned to our channels for new videos coming out. And with that, I hope you guys have a great day, and we will see all of you soon. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
I'm hitting the stop broadcast button, maybe. I don't know.